Hi, I'm Mike Sibley, leader of the James Moore manufacturing team. I'm here with Kevin Golden, one of my partners and member of the James Moore manufacturing team as well. So, Kevin, thanks for joining me again today.
Absolutely.
So, on today's episode, we're actually going to be discussing lean and continuous improvement for administrative processes, and more specifically, the accounting department. The accounting department, one of their goals is to obviously complete the monthly closes as quickly and accurately as possible. And I know, management is typically on, the last day of the month. Hey, when are we going to have the month closed out? We hear that all the time. And the accounting people are like, we're going to do it as fast as we can. But, all too often, manufacturers, they really focus on improving the manufacturing operations, and rightfully so. There's a lot of throughput. They need to be as efficient, cut waste, but oftentimes that doesn't bleed its way over into administrative side of things. Some companies do it really well, and a lot of times sometimes they don't really even necessarily understand what it takes to go through all the accounting processes and make sure things are accurate. So so what we want to talk about today is what that means and how it works from an accounting standpoint, but also talk about how, when you free up accounting time, think about it, Kevin, accountants don't need to be historians. They don't need to be scorekeepers. Accountants can actually get out there and be proactive and help understand the data, what's going on, and help be those analysts for production managers and supervisors and operations, as opposed to just spending all their time being scorekeepers. So, we'll talk a little bit about that as well, and how companies can approach this.
Yeah, no, I agree, Mike. As accountants ourselves, we definitely love when we get out behind just those rigorous data-driven tasks all the time that weigh us down, and do a lot more things that we actually enjoy doing, right? And frankly, relieve us from some of our stress from the day-to-day. Absolutely. And I love this topic just because I mean, who doesn't like the idea of maybe working a little bit smarter, the old adage of work smarter, not harder, right? Who doesn't love the idea of that? And more importantly, of freeing up anytime you can tell somebody you want to free up time, whether it's at home, at work, wherever. It's exciting. So I can't wait to talk a little bit more about it, and love this topic for that reason.
Yeah. So, if we just get started with, overall, we talk about what is lean, and part for manufacturers, this is not going to be for the most part, what lean is. Lean is about eliminating wasteful steps in the process. It's evaluating the process, finding out where the waste is, finding out where the extra steps are, the non-value add pieces, and eliminating them. And, it's oftentimes because people don't understand the accounting process, it's hard to get your head around how much time it can take to get information and to get things done. And an example that I have worked for a client not that long ago, where their closing process, they couldn't get financials out in a month or 2 months after the month end. Oftentimes they were waiting on other departments. They were trying to get precision down to the penny. You're talking about millions of dollars flowing through, and they were just trying to get everything down to the penny. And the owners are like, well, we're not worried about pennies. We're trying to make decisions here that are in the millions of dollars, not just pennies. And so, when we worked with them, we were able to get this down to a 10 to 15 day close, which was a dramatic improvement. And since then, they've been able to continuously improve. So, just like in a manufacturing operation, so in your plant floor, you're walking the process, you're looking for areas, you're working with your teams, your experts who do these things every day, and you're looking at how you can eliminate those wasteful steps and wasteful process. We want to do that. We were talking about the same exact thing for the accounting side of things. And there's a lot of paper flow. Now, there's a lot of electronic systems now too, but data in is not always good data in. And a lot of times the accounting department is cleaning up bad data issues. And because a lot of it has to do with administrative or technical processes flowing through the systems. And so, we always have time to kind of clean it up at the end, or we have to clean it up at the end, but how about spending the time to walk through, find out where those problems are? So, we're talking about doing the same exact steps here, about understand the process flow, get with the stakeholders and the people throughout the process and understand where we can eliminate the waste, basically.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I really like the fact that we're not talking about something about recreating a wheel. We're not talking about blowing up all process procedure, right? I think it comes down to understanding, knowing what all your people are doing, knowing what those process procedures are, to then identify, right? So sometimes it's just tweaking, right? It's not that you have a bad process, bad procedure. So I like that. We're not talking about starting from scratch. We're talking about taking what you have, understanding it better, so then you can maybe reposition it, maybe make some tweaks to it that could have some really big results. And Mike, you mentioned specifically accounting. So maybe dive that a little bit more. Maybe what specifically can the accounting department or can the accounting function use and apply for lean processes?
Yeah. So let's start with, where I usually start is, let's start with the end, right? What do we need out of the accounting department? So management is making decisions based on financial reports and other information that they receive. And so let's make sure we understand what management needs, what format they need it in, and give them that. All too often, I see accounting departments produce all sorts of data and reports. And when you talk to owners and managers, a lot of that stuff, they don't even understand it. They don't look at it and they're not using it. So we're spending all this time printing off paper or creating these data sets and sending it to management, and they're not looking at it. So that in and of itself can delay reporting. So let's understand exactly what they need. And if they're asking for information and maybe they're not getting stuff they could use. So let's start with our end users, our customers, and understand really what their needs are. And then work from there in terms of, okay, how do we get to that point? Then we step back and we talk about what I initially referred to is, let's understand what the current process is. So let's step through that. Flow charts. A lot of times accounting departments have flow charts, or you have descriptions of what the policies are. And if you don't, this is a great way to actually create those things. Remember, Kevin, last month we talked about financial systems adding to the value of the company. Well, one of the things that happens in due diligence is they come back and they say, hey, give me your process documents so they can understand what your processes are. So this will help with that whole process. But as you're evaluating that, it's where are the problems happening? Where are we wasting our time? What are we spending our time on? For example, there are times accounting department is waiting on information from other departments before they can finalize the financial statements. Well, again, this is where the collaboration comes in, where you can meet with those departments and say, hey, I need this information. What is holding you up from being able to get it? The answers will revolve around, we didn't know you needed it by X amount of time, or we didn't even know you needed it, or we don't understand it, and so we didn't know what to do with it. A lot of times what we see when we're going through these kind of processes is accounting departments get information, they fix the information, or they go to the project team or the management team and they ask, hey, what does this mean? What does this mean? And they fix all the stuff. And that's a real common problem in accounting. So if we spend some time showing them, hey, this is what these GL accounts, and I had this exact situation with a manufacturer where accounting was always fixing the coding. And so we went back and I said, okay, let's have a conversation about what we're trying to get to here, what these things mean. And rather than giving you the whole list of everything that could possibly be on a general ledger or whatever else, this is your area. This is what you need to know. And it made things so much simpler. Accounting is not complicated. It doesn't need to be. You certainly don't need a degree in rocket science or whatever to do this, but you can certainly make it harder than it needs to. So working with other departments to get information in the way you need it, when you need it. I see a lot of situations where dealing with invoicing customers and pricing issues and making sure your team is educated and understanding how to flow those transactions, inventory receipts into the system, making sure that piece is happening correctly and accurately, and why it's so important to do it a certain way. Or if you're finding errors, and that's where often through the process, you want to start is, okay, as you're going through, where are the errors that you're spending time fixing? Because if we can go back to the root cause of why those errors are occurring in the first place, then we address that, and now they're not flowing through, and you have more time to get your job done. And so you just go through each of those steps all the way along, find out what those issues are, and work on a new solution for, how you can work it a different way. Just like you would do if you were out and you're trying to figure out how to get a product through your process faster. Where's the bottlenecks in that process? What is holding you up? Why is it? Could be a switchover issue. It could be that for some reason you got a lot of errors or scrap or waste that comes out of a particular area, right? You know how to deal with that because that's what you do. You manufacture. But we're going to do the same thing in the accounting side of things. And frankly, you can move that into HR. You can move it into sales. You can move it everywhere throughout the organization. Then at that point, now you got all sorts of groups of people that are starting to understand the lean process.
Yeah, no, I like the analogy there. It's kind of like the proverbial assembly line, right? Because it's exactly right. And again, to reiterate, Mike, it's sometimes just simple conversations, right? And amongst departments and even amongst multiple people within those departments, because sometimes there's some confusion there, even because you get one person's point of view on when things are needed or what they think is timely or important versus someone else. So getting consensus and just setting those expectations properly amongst each other. You probably do that with your clients, all your external clients and customers, right? I mean, vendors, you have some expectations setting there. Same thing, just now looking at that amongst departments, amongst process and procedure internally, right? I know another thing can slow down. I know sometimes it slows me down, even in my job, is just trying to process a lot of information as well. So maybe you do have all those expectations. Maybe you do understand what you're going to get done and when, but it's a lot to do at once, right? I mean, we could be talking about large amounts of data here, right? To get the end result. So what can we do there that may be something that we're processing more manually? Is there some sort of automation or some other tools we can use made to make some of that busy work not so busy?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so you're seeing a lot of, well, let's step back. Most manufacturers have a software system that has a database attached to it, right? Whether you're using QuickBooks or an inventory system that comes into QuickBooks or a more sophisticated ERP/MRP system, it's got a database and there's all sorts of data. And sometimes you're even keeping data, maybe safety numbers, quality numbers, something else in spreadsheets. So you got all this data all over the place and you're trying to pull it all together. Well, we had Marie Hibbert on, our president of business intelligence and data analytics, back a few months ago. And one of the things we really talked about is taking this mass amount of data that you're trying to get this piece and that piece and put it in spreadsheets. And she talked about how you can just really automate that with the programs that are out there and available, the bots that are being written. And that's what Marie's team does is take all this data and summarize it faster and easier, whether it's a dashboard or, we had a client that was taking 8 hours of this data entry process. She got involved and turned it into 30 seconds worth of work. So you saved a whole day just based on, using these software systems, these processes in place. So, you think about all the data that gets accumulated in a manufacturing operation. And not only do you want it monthly, you want it daily or at least weekly in a lot of cases. And it takes, people power, manpower, woman power, whatever, to put that data into a way and then make sure you're not doing it and making errors while you're creating this data entry. Because that's one of the things that happens oftentimes with data accumulation when it's done by a human being is there's errors, or you use these spreadsheets and you're like, okay, I'm going to copy and paste this formula over. And the next thing you know, that formula is referring to the wrong cells. And you're thinking, gosh, our numbers are terrible, or our margins are awesome this month. Great. Only to find out, wait a second, that's not the case. We don't have that. So there's a lot of tools and software and, people that are capable of writing this. So going back to our lean processes, when you're going through that, look at what are areas where you spend a lot of time doing data entry or accumulating numbers into a spreadsheet and say, is there a better way to do this? Can we use some of these data automation tools to help improve, how quickly we get this, and even getting to the point of creating just daily dashboards or a minute by minute dashboards. I know there's some companies out there that have these TV screens in their manufacturing floor, and it's accumulating, showing data, production data, and all that. Well, it's kind of like doing the same thing for your financial process and information. Because imagine you're the owner of a business and you got a financial dashboard updating as transactions are updating. So you know what's going on. I mean, that'd be a great place. Now you're not as worried, or, the one of the things that you don't want to have as much as possible. You want information after month end as fast as possible, so you're making the right decisions. But also, if something's going wrong, you want to be able to correct it as soon as possible. So that's why really looking at lean and continuous improvement in your financial operations is just is really, really critical to make sure you can make the right decisions going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I definitely like the idea of, like I said earlier, freeing up time, right? Look through that process procedure, figure out what we can be doing better. What can we automate now? Potentially saves a day, hours a day, maybe even more, right? So now, of course, probably people are thinking, well, I saved myself a day worth of work that I used to do every month. Now I've got a whole day back, 8 hours a month back. What am I going to do with that time? So, I mean, that's a great question, right? So what can accounting personnel or other personnel do now that if I've got a freed up day, maybe a freed up week of all this manual or other process procedure, then now I'm more efficient. I have help of AI or otherwise. What am I going to do with that time? What should accounting departments and other personnel be focusing their time on now that we've made things better and freed up some of that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know when I talk to accounting personnel, they get frustrated by being bogged down in these issues. And so, like you said, as you can get rid of those issues, clean up the waste, and you start saving 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, who knows how many days out of that process. Now you say, okay, now I can take something, I can really add value to this organization. And we talked about companies and manufacturers, how they're implementing lean, or they're running their process. And for manufacturing, it's all about continuous improvement. So it's not like you just do this once and you're like, okay, we're good, never gonna have to do it. Products change, technology changes, machines wear down, all of these things can happen. So your accounting group can be involved in data analytics within the organization, working with your production team to help them identify areas of concern quicker, faster, easier. And they're on the forefront of it. And they're coming to that team saying, hey, I've seen a problem here. Our scrap seems to be going up. I had a client years ago where we were doing some outsourced CFO work, and their material costs we didn't have good data systems. We were working on building out new and better data systems, but in the meantime, we didn't have it, and their material costs kept going up. And finally, I went and looked at their trash bill, believe it or not, because it was done by weight. So when I came and picked up the dumpster, well, the weight was going up dramatically over those months, and I went. It took about 3 months before it finally kind of stuck out. And I said, what's going on here? What's up with this? Because I see our margins kind of, and this is going up. And if this is going up, that tells me you're throwing out a lot more product. And that was exactly what was happening. When they started digging into it, they were having a huge waste issue. And so imagine taking that and having better data systems and a person available, like your accounting team, to be identifying this really quickly, to go out and say, hey, I'm seeing an uptick in waste, and help them focus on, okay, well, what's going on? Is it a personnel issue? Is it a product quality issue from our suppliers that were missed in the quality control of receiving this? Well, now you've got the financial people engaged in identifying this sooner, which is a powerful tool for your production team, because they're trying to make sure they're supervising, they're looking at production schedules, they're looking at all sorts of things coming in. And it may be a delayed period of time before they have a chance to really sit down and analyze data. And let's face it, not everybody is good at analyzing numbers like that. And so that's where the power of your accounting team can come in and be like, hey, this is what we're seeing here. I'm not sure what's happening, but let's dig into it and look at it. And so if you can take that time not only get financials faster, and then take that extra time and build it into, a proactive approach to data analytics. Now as an organization, you're really able to be proactive and move forward at a much faster pace.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, it's when you've got all these departments now communicating with each other better about what they are, they're all going to look at it differently. You said it yourself. Some people are going to look at numbers differently, right? The CFO versus the controller versus the accounting, staff that you may have are all going to look at that differently. So the ability to let them free up their minds, their time to focus on, well, what does this actually mean instead of just tasks, right? Absolutely. Because hey, even if you catch something that's been going on for 6 months, 2 months earlier, that could be a massive amount of cost that you're just, eating every month that you could be saving. And again, now that's opportunity elsewhere. Where else can I be putting that money towards, right? Where else can I be, in our bottom line? So absolutely. So it's not just like everything. It's not only just there's definitely a financial, incentive there, but then I think there's incentive to lean processes with your individuals, with how they work, how they want to work. Things they're more excited about that then they're probably going to do better about because they're not taking so much time beating their heads against the wall with a process that just simply isn't working. So, that's great, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. So you hinted at it earlier, that, okay, hey, you could take a lean process and not just look at this in the accounting department or the financial minded people of your company, right? But maybe elsewhere. Where else have you seen that maybe applying this lean process, works, or what else can they do with that lean process, kind of evaluating that within their company other than just their financials?
Yeah. So we've done quite a bit of unusual type work in that area. So we've done it with HR, even evaluation processes. So how HR processes somebody through, but also even how people do their performance evaluations. We've looked at shipping departments. We actually helped a company reduce their use of plastics. So any area that where there's a process, you can apply, the lean methodologies to it, because again, it's looking at your sales process, how you're closing, how your paperwork gets filed all the way through till it becomes a contract or a production order, how your teams are working together and the way they're inputting. And sometimes you see these forms that people fill out. Forms got all sorts of redundant data in it, or you're getting multiple forms that has redundant data in it, or you're clicking through, you got a ERP system and you got to click through 75 fields because you only need about 6 out of the 120 that are on there. And, so those are all sorts of things that you can look at from sales, admin teams, customer service, finance, HR. It really can be focused in all areas of the business. Even, your receivables team, how they're doing their collections. You can look at collections. So it's not just the financial closing process, but how AR does their collections, how the accounts payable people enter in invoices and how that matching process happens and things of that nature. So really it can be anywhere within the business that has a process. And realistically, most businesses have processes for just about everything. And so, to me, what I suggest is you take it and you say, okay, let's highlight let's put our focus on the areas and prioritize. So, manufacturing is always prioritized, of course, and that makes a lot of sense. But then from there, hey, our finance department, and just list out your various areas and then work your way through it. I had a client recently tell me how they're educating everybody in the company on lean and continuous improvement. I think that's a great way to go. And I think that's a great decision by that management team. And I think it's going to make the business better. So educate everybody, because also what you're thinking about is, your admin teams may hear all about this CI or all about lean, but not know what they're doing. And if they don't know what they're doing, they can't even support it. So if we teach them, train them, now they can support it and they'll understand it a lot better. And they'll know when one of those production people come to them and say, hey, this is what we're working on, they'll have an idea and they'll be able to support and also maybe even provide better information. Now, sometimes, admittedly, particularly in accounting, I don't want to stereotype all of us accountants. Some of us really love change, but sometimes you come across, and it's not just accounting. You see people who say, I don't like change. I don't want to change. This has always worked. Why are we changing it now? Well, it worked back in 1983. That's great. But some things have changed since 1983. You don't need to print out stacks of paper and, do all this kind of stuff, right? So, you do have those battles. And of course, always top management, ownership, they need to be bought in. They need to be, they've got to be the ones that really encourage this and hold people accountable to the changes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think with change, I mean, one thing, lean process isn't something that you just do one time and you're done, right? Yes, it may substantially improve what you're currently doing. And it's like, oh my gosh, that was great. But the important thing is to keep revisiting that. And maybe it's not every year, right? Maybe it's every few years. But I think it's part of that, as part of the management team to say, hey, let's make sure we're re-examining these process procedures continuously. So that way, A, the changes aren't as great, every few years, and B, that we're keeping up, right? That we're using all the latest. I mean, technology is always changing, right? That we're using the latest and greatest technology, that we're looking at everything and running the way we want to as efficiently as possible. Why? Like we said, helps improve staff and what they do every day, helps improve your process procedure, helps you document that, that then ultimately leads you to maybe what your end goal is. And maybe that's growing your business to X amount, or selling, or transfer. We had a whole session on that a few months ago about what that means. This is another tool in your arsenal to help you reach that point. So, yeah, thanks, Mike. I think there's a lot of good information in there on the lean process. Thanks for sharing all that with us, and a lot of great tools that you can take away. And again, it goes back to starts with a simple communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Continuous improvement. We talk about it all the time. The moment you stop improving, you're falling behind. Simple as that. All right, Kevin, appreciate the conversation as always. And for everybody listening, of course, thank you for listening. Hope you got something value out of it. And, of course, always reach out to us, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
To learn more about James Moore & Company's manufacturing services, go to jmco.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our More on Manufacturing series to receive updates when new videos and podcasts are released. If you'd like to be a guest, or if there's a topic you'd like to see covered on a future episode, contact us on our website. You can also follow us on social media for more news as the landscape on manufacturing continues to rapidly evolve.